Welcome back to the news today. This is one-on-one. Less than a month before Israeli elections, a share of criticism has been directed towards the Zionist Union campaign, seen as dual, while Netanyahu's campaign is causing a buzz all around with videos like the babysitter and the ISIS video, as we saw earlier in the edition. So what could be done to lift the opposition party's campaign? With me is Eytan Shwartz, foreign affairs advisor to the Tel Aviv mayor and a candidate in Israel's Zionist Union Party. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Schwartz, try to explain to me, because this time it seems that the campaigns are a little bit more personal than it used to be. This time, like we're seeing with Benjamin Netanyahu, it's either me or them. And we're seeing with the Zionist Union, it's either us or him. It's more like, you know, going head-to-head with Benjamin Netanyahu, and maybe a month before the elections, the Zionist Union forgot that it actually needs a campaign.
Okay. I'll phrase it this way, if you will. The amount of animosity right now in the Israeli public towards the personal behavior of our prime minister, and I respect him because he's my prime minister, but I want to replace him, has reached, I think, levels that are unprecedented in Israeli politics, unprecedented in Israeli history. And I know you report about this also extensively, like media in Israel and all over the world has. So there are the people that are supporting us for our ideology, and we are very happy for that. There are people who are supporting us because they're just fed up with 9 years of Netanyahu, and we are happy for those voters to come vote for us as well. And despite what you said, and it's true that a lot has been going on in social media, we see a constant lead in the polls. And not only there, in anywhere you examine support for the party. For instance, we do a lot of election panels in high schools. And we lead in every one of these panels. We do a lot of stuff on social media, and we lead all over there. So it's true that it has become very personal, maybe sometimes too much. Politics in Israel have become very segmented. At the end of the day, people will vote for us either for ideology or for a lack of respect for the other person. In any way, it seems like we're going to win this time.
Yeah, but, you know, last time Benjamin Netanyahu needed Avigdor Lieberman and Israel Beitenu to actually merge in and be a great help for him in the elections. This time, he doesn't need the numbers of Israel Beitenu. He doesn't need Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman. He actually can hold all 23, 24, 25, according to which poll seats that he's winning. So how can you be that sure when he's gaining so much power, although people are talking really, really negative things about him and his wife?
I don't know which polls you read. I look at the ones I read in Israeli media, and the puzzle is indeed one that can put together different pictures. At the end of the day, it seems right now
it's changing.
It is changing, but I think what is clear now, for the first time in really 20 years, there's a chance that the centrist left voters in Israel will become the winners of the upcoming election. And in 3 weeks, we will see a shift in government that will kind of like align all the other parties with one central ideology. At the end of the day, there are many parties in the Israeli system. Two people can be prime minister: Benjamin Netanyahu or Yitzhak Herzog, the head of the Zionist Union. And if he forms a coalition, which I hope he will in 3 weeks, Herzog, then everybody else that can and will join our ideology will kind of like form a bloc which is different than the one that has been controlling this country for the past 20 years in two fronts: the political front, our constant striving for an agreement with our neighbors, the notion that, yes, we have to be powerful, we have to have a strong army, but once the conflict can be resolved around the negotiation table, we have to do everything to do that. That's on the political side. And on the economic side, a market system, but with more compassion than what's happening right now in Israeli society.
So explain to me, we talked at the beginning when we saw the joint the Zionist Union, like you explained it. We saw two leaders. We saw Tzipi Livni and we saw Isaac Herzog. And now we're seeing only Isaac Herzog. Where Tzipi Livni fits into this equation?
Tzipi Livni is doing the rounds of politics. I personally spent 2 evenings in a row with her speaking at bars with hundreds of young voters, actually Anglos, people that have immigrated from other countries to this country, and she is all around the place campaigning. At the end of the day, as I said, two people can be prime minister on May 18th, which is the day after election, and we're doing the utmost we can to make sure that everybody understands that unless it's Herzog, we get 4 more years of Netanyahu, which is something that, from what we feel, most Israelis don't want.
So Isaac Herzog will, if he will be the prime minister, he will be the prime minister for all the 4 years?
they have an agreement when they form these two, this new party called the Zionist Union from two other parties, the Labor and Hatnuah parties, an agreement of a rotation system. Essentially what they were saying is this: there are different political ideologies in Israel. They have come from different political backgrounds altogether, but what unites them is A, the love of the country, and B, a sort of pragmatism, understanding what are the core issues Israel has to deal with and how do they bridge the differences between them. And what they're saying is it's about pragmatism, it's about loving the country and understanding there are limits to what we can do, as opposed to a regime that we feel has failed us both politically and economically for the past few years, and most Israelis want a change.
I want to take you to maybe last week's Isaac Herzog had an interview, a very hard interview on Channel 2, Israeli Channel 2, and although I disagreed about a lot of about the way that this interview was handled, there was one thing that I was really worried about, and the fact that Isaac Herzog didn't answer the question if he will form maybe a united government with Benjamin Netanyahu, if it will get to a point where he will sit with Benjamin Netanyahu after all this, let's say, not nice campaign that we're seeing between these two. At the end of the day, he will sit down and he will have to form a government with him. And he wasn't able to answer that. I don't know if he wasn't able to answer that because he didn't want to answer this question, or because the interviewer didn't give him the opportunity to actually answer. So you please answer me.
Okay. Well, you have the luxury of standing and sitting in that chair and being able to portray everything in black and white. And what politicians have to do is sometimes find the best way to realize a vision they have politically. Now, I will say this. There are different scenarios. For instance, we win. The Likud party loses, and Netanyahu then resigns immediately, and somebody else takes his place as chair of the party. That happened once before. So we can't say we're not going to form a coalition government with the Likud because, according to our game plan, we win, Netanyahu loses, and then might resign. And there are other people in the Likud party that might be able to lead that party to a more pragmatic government led by Herzog.
So it's personal with Benjamin Netanyahu?
It's not personal with Benjamin Netanyahu. It's understanding that this specific person, who has been prime minister for 6 years, 6 consecutive years, and 9 years altogether, has failed at all accounts. People do not want to see him as prime minister.
And if he will be sitting, you will win, and he will be in the Likud. Will you, at the end of the day, find a way to sit down with Benjamin Netanyahu in the same government?
Our goal is to win the election in a sweeping way that would allow us to form the perfect coalition that we want to form, and we do not want to talk about concessions. We will do. We don't want to make concessions. We want to win. We want to form the government, and we want all the parties that believe in our ideology to be senior partners.
Are you managing to get to the people? Because, you know, with the problematic image, because unfortunately, and I'm not saying that a person should be judged by his voice or by the amount of time that he went from one party to another, but, you know, image is a very important thing in elections. Do you think that with all the image problems that you are facing in this campaign, you are actually getting to the people and explaining to people that this time it's really crucial to change the prime minister?
You know, I think what's really interesting about the Zionist Union, it not only represents the values that this country once believed in and followed, I think it also represents a type of leadership that we once had and we feel we lost. Now, Herzog himself is the son of our former president, a grandson of a chief rabbi. His uncle was Abba Eban, the most famous Israeli diplomat of all time. So this is not only his personal, as his political legacy associated with the ideals that we all long for, it's a sort of pragmatic leadership. You know what? David Ben-Gurion, our first prime minister, maybe he wouldn't have won today with the way he appeared on television. I'm sure some of the American presidents or the great American presidents maybe wouldn't have passed today's media scrutiny, but that's the type of longing we have right now in Israel for a leader which is a leader. Not a rock star, not a television star, and not a comedy star, which is a one side of Netanyahu that at least his campaign managed to expose. He's a wonderful comedian. I would have loved to have seen him on the Saturday Night Live reunion, but as prime minister, he didn't do such a good job, and we want to replace him with hope.
You know, maybe one advice that you can give Isaac Herzog is not to use too much of the family legacy like his predecessors, or not predecessors yet.
I think his family legacy says a lot about the person and the type of household he was brought up in, and I think he will stand up to the standards set by his father and grandfather.
Eytan Shwartz, thank you very much for this interview, and thank you, our viewers, for being with me tonight. Tomorrow we will be here. No, we won't be here. It's the weekend. It's winter. We're all going to be cuddling in our blankets. Have a great weekend.